Hello, Internet. It's Gino, that Pinguino Grieco here again with another episode of Deep Listens. Welcome to the Tony Hawk 2 episode, y'all. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 episode. And I'm joined, as always, by Peter Shrednificent Busby.
What's going on, everybody? I don't think I ever got closer in my life to skateboarding than like the 2 days after I finished any Tony Hawk game. That was always the closest I ever came to being a skater. But it's good to talk about it, as always. Thank you for having me.
So
I feel like you're too tall to be a skateboarder.
I think I'm too a lot of things to be a skateboarder. I'm too top heavy, I think.
Yeah, you have little gangly legs.
Yeah.
And then you have shoulders that have their own shoulders. So, like, it's just not going to work out.
No, my balance isn't very good either.
It's unfortunate. And that other voice that you hear is Billy the Flip Kick Rothert.
You know, my first time flip kicking, it was for a black belt. Now, when I flip kick, it's for collectibles. So, I'm actually down with this trade-off.
There's so much skater lingo that I know just enough of to use improperly.
Yeah, bruh.
And Tony Hawk is just making that so much worse. So, before we get into Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, just a reminder, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We've got comment sections, and at deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. So, one thing I just wanted to say before we discuss the Tony Hawk stuff was I was giving a little bit of thought to one of the sentiments that you brought up in the Final Fantasy IX last podcast, Pete, about why does Kuja's, like, his spoilers for Final Fantasy IX, the end of Final Fantasy IX.
Why are we talking about Final Fantasy IX?
I gave some thought to something, and
Gino's giving thoughts.
This is our forum. This is the next time we're talking. And you mentioned, like, why did I think Kuja's redemptive arc, did I think it worked at the end of the podcast? And I think what it comes down to is something I didn't say in the podcast was I think I just really needed him to be relatable, and I needed to feel okay with liking him. And I thought that redemptive arc gave him that, because the things I read into his storyline were so aligned with things I was thinking about at the time that just making him slightly redeemable did not make me feel quite so bad about identifying with a character who was so deeply nihilistic and flawed.
I'd say you're starting from a position where you already, sort of like this character, maybe rooting for him in a certain sense, so that redemptive turn worked better from you because you're already primed for it, maybe in a way.
Yeah, so I was definitely thinking of his rebellion not purely in it. I was thinking of it more of its symbolic terms than in the ramifications that it meant for other people. And so I was able to see his kind of rebellion against Garland as I'm terminal, but I'm going to use this agency in the only way I know how. And it happened to be destructive. And I was so primed to identify with that sort of narrative, that kind of self-destructiveness as a form of free speech, that I just really liked. I needed to see him then get redeemed a little bit because I saw a poetic justice in what he was doing.
Yeah, and this is a problem you run into with criticism a lot of the time. Like, to use a more extreme example, in a book like Lolita, where the main character is, a pedophile, once you start producing readings and looking at more of the symbolism behind actions as opposed to the literal, it becomes easier to not justify by any means, obviously, but sort of maybe gloss over. Yeah.
How the fuck did we go from Final Fantasy to Lolita?
It's just a problem of criticism, man. We're culture critics.
Welcome to our show, Billy. And now we're going to go from Lolita to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2.
Well, that transition makes sense.
Deep symbolism.
Yeah, both of them. Oh, no, I'm not going to try and do a transition. Anything I say will be terrible.
Yeah.
I was going to say, well, when these are your two juxtapositions, you can't really do it.
Speaking of Humpert, my creative skater looked like a pedophile. That's not true. So I guess a good place to start with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 is actually to create a skater. Did you guys create your skaters, or were you the Tony Hawk?
Yes. I created a skater, and I found out that it was actually like a statistical disadvantage because you just got worse stats to start the game.
But no, I'm always Bob Burnquist.
Really?
Yep, rep my set. I'm always Bob Burnquist every time I can be.
Loyalty is respected.
I even do it in Madden. I like scroll through all the characters. I'm like, why isn't Bob Burnquist in here?
Damn it. His Ollie stats would be so much better than Eli Manning's.
He just jumped the line.
So I went to create a skater, and I like playing around with the boundaries to see what the boundaries are. And
like appearance boundaries?
All the boundaries.
All the boundaries.
Gino kind of does what I do when I first turn on a game, which is like go through the options and the settings and to see what you can do. Like, can you invert the XY axis? Can you change the brightness and the contrast so that you can get some kind of in-game advantage? And Gino's like, can I make my character's nose go the other way?
See, I never really cared because I always like to play with the invisible cheat on when I played Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
That's fair, but I just wanted to know, like, what Tony Hawk's Pro Skater? How old do you think skateboarders are?
43.
It turns out skateboarders can be between the ages of 5 and 55.
All right, well, that's
no older, no younger.
Nice wide range there.
And they can be weights from 88 pounds to 378 pounds.
But like very specific increments in between, though, not like any gradient.
Yes. If you're 90 pounds exactly, go fuck yourself. You can't be a pro skater.
No, you need to lose those 2 pounds immediately, or put on another 200.
It's like boxing weight classes.
Exactly. And so my character was named Skater X because when you create a character, it gives you Skater A, and I'm extreme. So. I'm Skater X. He hails from...
spelled it with an 8 as well, SK8R.
No, that factored into his hometown, because his hometown was Skate or Die, SK8 or Die. Yes. He was 5 years old and 88 pounds.
It's a prodigy.
He was a
young
phenom.
5-year-old.
A huge 5-year-old.
Yeah,
with a 5 o'clock shadow. I love that the appearance has no bearing on whatever age you select.
Nope.
I could go with full beard, cornrows.
Also doesn't have any bearing on your stats and your actual in-game play.
No. And you could be as heavy or as light as you want. In a way, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is one of the most accepting of different body types.
It is. Because you can skate whether you are a 5-year-old, 88-pound little... I don't know, mutant from Skater Die Town, or if you're some 387-pound land whale mammoth man.
55-year-old dinosaur, apparently.
Yeah.
After that, you die in Skater Town. But the structure of career mode with Tony Hawk is something that is... You just don't... I mean, maybe I just haven't kept up with... skating games and games like it, but it's got such a weird structure when you think about it.
I think any time you're playing a game that is supposed to be some kind of spectator sport game, but not a
team sport,
not a team sport game, it's going to have to go this way. Stuff like a golf game or a racing game. A game that's taking itself seriously, not like Mario Kart. You know, a good racing game. We're talking about other racing games. They're always going to have...
Did you just imply that Mario Kart isn't deathly serious?
Oh, Mario Kart is deathly serious. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the only racing game.
It's the beginning and end. Snake or die.
Yeah. It's the alpha and the omega. Rainbow Road, ride or die. So, back to my point. You sort of have to because of the nature of the beast. Like, there's really no like player versus player mechanic here. Sort of like there's very little player versus player mechanic in a game of golf or a racing game. Where I guess there is some player versus player mechanic here, but you're sort of all doing the exact same thing at the exact same time, as opposed to there being like an offense and a defense.
I guess what I meant more for the career mode being odd is that it is not. In some ways, skating is the medium in which you are acting. All your verbs are skating verbs, but it is not a. It is not primarily trick-centric in terms of how you actually accrue money, which is how you advance through career mode. Like, there are some things that are definitely trick-centric, but then you've got stuff like grab the skate letters, or, get X number of spray cans, or, jump over this gap that may or may not, you don't even have to do a trick, you just need to jump over this gap.
Yeah, you could, I'm just looking at the goals for the school level right now. So you could unlock 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could do 6 of them with one trick each.
Exactly.
If you wanted to.
And you can actually get through a pretty substantial amount of the game without even knowing how to do tricks if you're very diligent about learning these levels and jumping at the right time.
Yeah.
I can speak to this because I played this game on an emulator, and I didn't have access to 50% of the tricks in the game until I changed what controller I was using.
Oh, no.
So any tricks, I specifically played the N64 version on an N64 emulator.
Oh, God.
And any tricks that would have used the C directional buttons just didn't work.
And what tricks would those be, Billy?
Well, since they were programmable, you could change what they were at any given time. I don't remember what they exactly were.
Okay.
The names, the names thereof. And in many cases, I didn't actually care about the names of the tricks. I only care about what their score was.
Yeah.
I just feel like if in all the emulators in all the land, choosing the N64 emulator for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 was probably the wrong choice, but you know what?
Why?
If you bust out the sick trick, because the N64 just had all the problems that the PS1 had, the N64 had them worse. The draw distance on the PS1 version that I'm playing on my PS3, it's poor. But compared to the N64, I'm sure that the draw distance is some sort of incredible magical dreamscape.
I don't know, man. Seemed okay to me. That wasn't what the problem was for me.
The problem was not being able to do.
The problem was the B button wasn't coded quite right on the gamepad that I was using, so I switched to a different one, and then we were okay.
Yeah, and that's a pretty unique problem. Were you able to make progress without?
Oh yeah, because you don't need any of those tricks to be good. You can just use the same. In fact, I think you only need maybe 6 tricks in the whole game. You need to know how to manual.
Yeah,
you need to know how to rail grind. And then you need just 4 tricks you can do reliably in the air and mix up the combination thereof to get a really high score.
Yeah, and that's basically what I did. Anytime I got a really high score, it was because I did a kickflip to a rail, and then I just jumped and transitioned grinds 4 or 5 times, and then landed safely. Ta-da.
Do you think in terms of sport video games, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater has to be up there with the largest disconnect between the actual practice and the video game, I'd imagine.
Yeah. I every time my skater magnetized to a surface, if I was in a bowl and went at some ungodly angle, and all of a sudden he just realigned himself so that he would land properly, I was like, well, that's
skateboarding.
That's what it looks
That's
like.
how it works.
Or every
That's
time
how inertia.
Or every time I took a jump and came off at a weird angle and realized I was not going to make the transfer onto another half pipe, and my skater there was no ability for him to do anything other than land directly on his head. It's yep, I don't know. I think Tony could have found a way to position himself to not die here.
Well, you wear helmets.
You do. I mean, my Skater X doesn't wear a helmet.
Landing directly on your spine is still inadvisable, though.
Yes. Yeah, Skater X was a pack-a-day smoker, so he just took it, didn't care, just kept going.
I mean, as strange as sort of like some of the setup is, as we're describing, right? Like sort of this disconnect. The game gets a ton of mileage, I think at least, out of these non-score based objectives, because you can tear through the high score, pro score, six score pretty quickly, and it's not really that entertaining, to be honest with you. It's these secondary objectives that I think are really the meat of this game. It's more of an exploration game than anything else.
Yeah, and it's this weird tension between doing these two things, because every level, except for I guess the skate exhibitions or whatever
the competitions.
The competitions.
Yeah.
A lot of these segments, you've got 2 minutes to kind of do whatever you can do in those 2 minutes. And for me, I kind of, at the beginning of every level, would go, okay, what am I doing first? Am I exploring, or am I trying to get as high a score as possible?
Mm-hmm.
But I can't do both. Like, if I'm trying to do some sort of exploration thing, my score just is not going to be high enough. So generally, I would come into the level, I would try to just, like, get skate or, like, get a collectible, so I'm, like, familiar with the level. And then I would probably bust out, like, 2 or 3 of the score things in a row to just get the money to advance. But some of the different non-score related, like the random exploration things, were just so annoying to execute that I would just ignore them entirely, like ollieing fire hydrants or grinding the bells in the school, or ollieing the magic bum, which that didn't age well. All of those different segments, like, just because of the nature of the trick and what they ask you to do, like, my create a character didn't have a good ollie early on, and so I just couldn't ollie the fire hydrants with any kind of regularity, so I just gave up on it. Or there was a while where I was trying to do grind the rails in New York City, and I had really terrible rail balance. I really had terrible balance scores, so I was just always eating it towards the end just because I lost control. And then I just put some points into balance, and all of a sudden it was super easy.
Mm-hmm.
So it really varied. Like, I think maybe you guys agree with me. The first level is the best level, the hangar.
I like school, actually, the second one, but hangar's good.
Really? Do you like the school?
I like the school, yeah. I mean, I get your frustration with the wall ride objective, because wall rides are a pain in the ass.
I think
But,
the school
yeah,
level
like
was
school.
garbage.
Really?
Yeah,
Well, that
easily
was-
the worst.
To hell with you guys.
I don't think it's the worst level. Philadelphia is a pretty terrible level.
Well, I'm not gonna say anything bad about Philly, but you know.
Yeah, bro, wash your mouth.
So the school level for me, I feel like was the least. It had like the least cohesive layout. Like, it was the hardest to go from one piece of the level to the next.
Right.
So I feel like I had to, at the start of a run, say, like, I guess I'm just gonna be like isolated to this one little part of the level, or else I really can't get back or can't effectively get to other places. I mean, in some of the other levels, I knew that maybe there were main ways to get from one section to the next, but I felt like the place was connected in a way that made sense, and I feel like the school level wasn't connected in a way that made sense. It was
Maybe
sort
I
of
was-
chunky.
Maybe I was just nostalgic for my days as a high school delinquent, you know?
It's shredding up the school.
Just getting sick rails and other skater stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I went to military school. It was kind of different.
There wasn't as much shredding.
Not yeah. There was a lot of head shaving.
Then you get skater
Yeah.
culture. Then you understand.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's gotta
Yeah.
be it, you know.
Yeah, so for me, the cool things about the hangar are it's one of the only levels with like a hidden thing that when you unlock it, you can unlock it dynamically every time you play the level, like grinding on the helicopter or grinding on the propeller.
Yeah, for the wind tunnel.
Yeah, the wind tunnel and the outside area, like that's super cool. And it's got a nice half pipe setup. There's nice transfer spots where you can kind of keep a trick going and still feel like you're moving, making, progress through the level. I didn't like the school until I figured out how, like, certain elements allow you to transfer from location to location. Like the first one was just jumping over the stairs and just doing a trick and landing it. Then maybe hitting a rail, grinding it, jumping, grinding another rail. Then there's an area where it's like a 45-degree angle, and it looks like it's something you would just walk up. But if you take it at a high enough speed, you can actually jump off of it, do a trick or two in the air, and then land perfectly on a rail, grind sideways, and then like jump and hit that rail that kind of it divides a ramp and some stairs, and then you've successfully moved through like 3/4 of the level, all doing tricks and like doing cool shit to get you there. And when I was successfully doing that on a pretty regular basis, all of a sudden the school level felt a whole lot better. Whereas where I was trying to just, grind the fucking bells, I was not super happy.
There are other levels with like secret entrances and stuff though, besides the hangar.
Yeah, like New York has ones when you get the subway tokens. You can go up to the rails.
Well, there's other worlds that you can like break through walls and get to new places.
Yeah, there's one
like
in
one of the competition levels, I think. You can like knock down a tree and
in France.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Marseille.
Yeah. So there are other places you can go that are like secret places.
Yeah, but I feel like those they just are so obvious. And
fair enough.
Maybe to childhood me, it was like, oh my goodness, this level changed.
There's wind.
I'm a genius.
Well, hang on now. When that should happen in Pokemon Snap, you were actually hype.
I'm really hype.
Why should we take anything away from Tony Hawk?
I'm not taking anything away from Tony Hawk. When I was a kid, I was super duper hype. The difference was I didn't play Pokemon Snap as a child. I played it as an adult.
Then you didn't have a childhood.
You're right.
I mean, any game's going to look bad compared to Pokemon Snap.
That's true.
Let's be real.
No matter what I do in Tony Hawk, Pikachu doesn't surf. No matter how hard I try.
Did you try to make Pikachu with your Creative Skater?
No, but I did just keep throwing rocks at all the different characters, hoping that they would make a fun pose. That didn't work. Unfortunately.
So, throughout career mode, you visit these various locations that will become progressively larger, more complex, getting out of a, how should I say, like, I can't think of the right word for it, but maybe contrived is the word? Like the hangar level and the school level, while we may like them for various reasons, they felt very artificial and put there specifically to be a skating level. And the later levels were more like
organic.
Oh, yeah, they were organic. Yeah, they were much more organic. And how do you feel about a game sort of starting in one mindset and then developing into something more like this?
Do you think it was like a function of, like, there's no tutorial in a Tony Hawk game. Do you think it made more sense to start in like a specific skating context before moving it to something largely geographical?
Perhaps. I just feel like when I first started playing the game, the first 2 levels, I had one idea about what the game was going to be like, and then it was completely different by the end. So do you feel like it was a bait and switch? Because, I mean, I think the later levels were very well made, but now that you mention it, were they only designed that way to be simple in a tutorial aspect? Were they trying to go for New York and Philly levels the whole time, and they had to sort of begrudgingly get through the hangar level? Because I thought the hangar level was one of the most fun to play.
I think that one of the interesting things about the hangar level is there are very few wrong ways to approach a thing in the hangar level. You basically have half pipes surrounding the entire perimeter. There are multiple grind spots that are very easy to hit. There's a regular half pipe that you could just get a ton of tricks, vertical tricks there. The first level basically doesn't ask you to do anything other than vertical tricks if you don't want to, which is kind of what you think of when you think of skateboarding for the most, at least for me. Like the visually impressive stuff is getting up high and grabbing a thing. And so that level kind of allows you to play the game in a way where verts are very important. You do some transfers just kind of by accident, and cool stuff happens just by playing semi-competently. Then the second level, the school, is more of a street level. Like there's a lot more. There's a lot more space for manualing. There's a lot more space for just ollies because you need to get tricks out because there's no big jumps really. In that there are only a few big jumps and they are not easy to land. Whereas in the first level, you have really wide half pipes that are super easy to land tricks on without a lot of if you don't go too crazy. So it kind of, the second level I felt tutorialized me in a different mode of playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. One where jumps with short tricks kind of connected by manuals or grinds was important instead of just building up a lot of speed and height. And I feel like they really nailed having, like, when you pick a character, whether your character is going to be vert, street, or all around.
Mm-hmm.
And they really nailed that difference in play style between a vertical level and a street level. And then, like, the later levels kind of combine them in more organic ways. Like, New York City has a lot of street elements in between some major half pipes, or the French level,
Marseille.
Marseille has deep bowls, and then if you go over to like the other side, there's just a ton of rails and like tables and things if you're going to do street tricks. And they managed to just blend these two elements a lot more organically. And I think you kind of have to have these two stark examples of here's a level that is mostly verts and here's a level that is mostly street, to then when the player is kind of up on how to play those two different styles, they can then seamlessly blend them in a way that feels more organic. Like by the time I got to Venice Beach, I was just banging out like 2 or 3 different styles of trick all in one fell swoop because I felt trained up on it. I don't know if that happened to you guys too.
No, I think you're pretty much spot on here, Gino. And I think part of it is sort of why maybe we enjoyed those first levels a bit more, because they are more cohesive, because they lack that exploratory element.
Yeah, like you don't have to. Those first levels, a lot of the things are right in front of you. You kind of know what you have to do. Mm-hmm. I found for me, like when I stopped being able to progress through career mode was when I got to Venice Beach, because there was just so much to do, and the tricks I needed to do in order to just get the skate, or like the precision I needed to play with, just I couldn't execute quickly enough, or I'd get distracted by one of the other optional missions, and so I just kind of stalled out there. But it was still, that's probably my favorite level, is Venice.
Yeah, so I think Venice Beach is a pretty good level. I think that it felt to me like one of the largest levels.
Yeah, it's pretty huge.
And I think that was pretty good, because it felt like I could explore more, and I like the collectible model here, so it felt like I was exploring an environment a little more than some of the other levels like Philly or like the school. I mean, I think the collectibles here were really, really solid. And that's not just because I'm the guy who's all about grinding and collectibles, but I think here we had a model of achievements and collectibles and exploration that did more than just satisfy the completionist. I think it did something extra. I think it did a tutorial advantage. I think it had an exploratory advantage. I think it had a sort of make you into a better player advantage, because you could sort of plan your routes and have to nail better tricks to make this stuff work. So, yeah, it was a collectible. Yeah, it was completionist, but it served many other purposes in the game. And I think this is, oddly enough, one of the best collectible schemes that I've seen this year.
Yeah,
and it came from 2000.
Go ahead, Pete.
I was just gonna say, for as useless as they were, I loved unlocking new decks. Like you never see them. Like they don't make you better, but they just look sweet. I just loved unlocking them.
Yeah, they do a good job of capturing some element of consumer skater culture that I think is pretty admirable, despite the fact that I just said consumer skater culture.
Those things are usually diametrically opposed.
Yes. But it is just, I think, so the term, I think, Billy, that your comment really reminded me of is breadcrumbing, or breadcrumbs. All of the collectibles in this game are largely breadcrumbs. They are laid out in such a way as to make you either obviously like steered towards different elements of the level in order to make you more familiar with the level and its mechanics. So like the skate letters are arranged in such a way that the only way you can complete that objective is if you see almost every jump or every vertical. Like they managed to spread out the skate letters and whatever the secondary collectible was in a given level.
Like Liberty Bells or bums or garbage cans or fire hydrants, whatever it was.
Yeah, or tokens, whatever it was.
Subway tokens.
It was always arranged in a way that that made you explore the level and kind of get your bearings. And by doing that, instead of just kind of giving you this level and saying, go bust sick tricks, they could have made the objectives like nail 3 flip tricks in one combo or something like that. Or, do a vertical trick and then a transfer, but they made sure that at least 3 or 4 different objectives were exploration based, and not just exploration based, but were these large kind of flashing things that were really easy to find. But speaking of the skate decks, you got the skate decks, you got the trucks, but one other thing that captured consumer skater culture is the soundtrack of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2.
Oh man.
Okay, first question.
Let's see.
What is your favorite song on the soundtrack? You do not have to say the name, because none of us know the names of most of these songs.
I'm going to look them up.
Rage Against the Machine, Bulls on Parade?
Yeah, Bulls on Parade's pretty good. Pete,
what
is...
I gotta just... Anytime I can see Papa Roach and Anthrax like on there, I'm already happy. But I gotta find the list now. I gotta make sure I do this right.
Yeah, if you could, when you find the list, if you could just read the track list, because I need to complain about a couple of songs later on, and knowing their names would be good.
Here we go. So we have Bring the Noise by Anthrax and Chuck D. Blood Brothers by Papa Roach. Guerrilla Radio by Rage Against the Machine.
Oh yeah, I got the name wrong.
Pin the Tail on the Donkey by Naughty by Nature. You by Bad Religion. When Worlds Collide by Power Man 5000. No Cigar by Millencolin. Is that a play on melancholy, I think?
Sure.
B-Boy Document 99 by the High and Mighty. Cyclone by Dub Pistols. May 16th by Lagwagon. Subculture by Styles of Beyond. Heavy Metal Winner by Consumed. Evil Eye by Fu Manchu. Out with the Old by Alley Life. And 5 Lessons Learned by Swinging Utters. Could you this is a perfect document of...
No, just leave it there. Perfect document.
Right? There's not a single title and artist name that doesn't make perfect sense within the context of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2.
They nailed it. It was pitch perfect. Yeah,
When Worlds Collide was a pretty good one, too.
Incredible.
Oh, fuck. Pete, what is your favorite?
I'll probably go When Worlds Collide by Power Man 5000.
Fuck. My favorite was Cyclone by, what was it, Dub Nation?
Dub Pistols.
Cyclone by Dub Pistols.
Oh, the Dub Pistols.
Yeah.
And now, which song is your least favorite? The one that you just couldn't stand because there are 10 songs on this.
15.
15 songs in this game, and man, it felt like 5 sometimes.
Right, because there's just so many you have to skip. It was the same with like the old Madden soundtracks too.
Yeah, I really am just like not a big fan of Papa Roach, so that was probably my least favorite.
Papa Roach is good. I might go Anthrax. Bring the Noise.
I don't know. Chuck D is at least in that.
Yeah, that's a good point. What's like the actual Papa Roach song? He has like one that's like an actual song, doesn't he?
Is it Scars or something like that?
Yeah.
It's like a Papa Roach's discography. Last Resort. That's the one I was thinking.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's the one.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sadness Muffin. I don't know.
Oh, Getting Away with Murder is another one.
I just
like now I just want to sing these stupid songs.
Fucking Worlds Collide. I can't. What was Worlds Collide and the song immediately after it?
When Worlds Collide, No Cigar by Millencolin. That's on the list. I don't know if this is the order they play in.
Well, there's the one where it's like, and if I hear you and the devil.
Yeah, I don't remember which one that is.
Your guide.
Oh my god.
That song's so I hated Worlds Collide and I hated the song. Are you ready to go? 'Cause I'm ready to. That song is fucking the worst. Like every time I was playing this game and that song came on, Jen would, like, my wife would come out, shut the door, and
You're
yell
telling
at me.
The Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 soundtrack is jeopardizing your marriage? That's what I'm hearing.
It did for a week.
Gino, sometimes you got to decide, how committed are you to the skater lifestyle? Skate or die, bro.
It's true. Skater X was from Skate or Die.
There you go.
Skate or Die, Wyoming.
Do you think like this is accurate as like a document of the aesthetic of skating at the time? Like, is this what skaters were listening to, do you think?
I mean, I think so.
I think this was just the really good songs of like 1996 to like 1999.
But it's like a very specific set of songs.
So if you remember, Gino, how you shared something very personal in the Final Fantasy IX podcast, I can also share something very
Is Tony Hawk 2 going to be like your like?
No. So the whole reason why I got into music the level that I am now, and I would say that I am a vicious consumer of music. I mean, I think...
Please tell me that Papa Roach had a
cut
seminal...
my life into pieces.
Like my main method of consuming music is through Pandora, and they tell me that I listen to something like upwards of 300 hours of music per month.
It's a lot of music.
That's 10 hours a day.
Yeah. Because I play it at work, and then I play it at home, and I easily consume 10 hours of music a day. And I learned to like music when I was in grade school, and one day I got a report card that was just disappointing enough that my dad told me that I was grounded until the next report cards came out.
So you went in your room and started blasting Papa Roach?
Full 9 weeks. I had to just come straight home, go right into my room. I was only allowed to come out for dinner. No friends on the weekends. 9 weeks. Nothing. And the only thing I had in my room was a radio. So I listened to my local rock station, and I discovered music. And so I was very in tune to what was popular in this like span of short couple years. And yeah, this playlist does capture that demographic pretty well. The demographic that would have played Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 probably would have been listening to these songs anyway.
Right, but now my question is the demographic who's playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 and enjoying this music made up of actual skaters?
I think to a certain extent, in the same way that, like,
I think so.
NFL locker rooms are full of people who love Madden. Like
Fair point.
as a cartoonish way to play the same, like a facsimile of the sport that they enjoy. A facsimile of the sport they enjoy.
Man.
That just
NFL guys love Madden.
They do. They love Madden.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Yes.
They'll write to like the developers if they feel like their ratings are off. Like if they feel like they're faster than Madden thinks they are.
I'm just not aware of any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes some sense. Like, as a player, you're not necessarily calling the shots in the way you do in Madden.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you want a deeper understanding of football strategy, Madden is actually a pretty good way to go about getting it.
But
Strategery.
There's still, I guess I'm trying to sort of ask a larger question here, because there's a disconnect insofar as Madden doesn't try to establish like football culture, right? Like in a tangential way, maybe. Whereas I feel like Tony Hawk, it has some sort of spurious worth as a cultural document of like.
It's definitely a cultural document.
Yeah, in a way that like Madden or something else wouldn't be, and that seems strange to me.
Well,
that a game like Tony Hawk should have worth as a cultural artifact.
I think I can explain this.
I think you're a little wrong, though, in terms of Madden not being a cultural artifact, because if you look at the highlights,
the hit stick.
Yes, the highlights that they used to play at the beginning of Madden, like in the early 90s or the late 90s, where it's just like gigantic tackles, helmet to helmet hits, and all that shit. And now, like if you just watch the intro to like Madden 2004 or something like that, you will cringe compared to how football is kind of treated today.
You know, it would be an interesting, just sorry to interrupt, but in sort of feeding off this point, an interesting question would be to look at how the rates of concussions in Madden video games has changed over time.
Yeah, how often you get them, like the injury rate, because if the injury rate matched real football injury rates, it would probably just make you real upset.
Yeah, you'd never have any players.
You know, like real football.
Right. I'm gonna back up Pete's point from a different angle about Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 being a sort of cultural document here for a very particular demographic. I think this is one of the few outlets or actualizations of this particular demographic, this sort of marginalized subculture that doesn't get any like expression in gaming, because at this point it was the late 2000s, right? We were on the
when was it released?
It was released in 2000.
Okay.
The late 90s, you mean?
The what?
You said late 2000s. This was released
sorry. Yeah. The Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 was released in 2000, I think.
Yeah, it was like 99, 2000. It was in that corridor, depending on the system.
Yeah. So at this time, it was like right between two gaming generations. And so, well, hang on, my train of thought left. I got like interrupted for a second, and I lost it. I'm just going to get back to what I wanted to talk about. There was a marginal. Yeah.
But go ahead.
I was like responding to something that somebody else said, but I knew what I wanted to talk about originally. So, I want to back up Pete and say that where a game like Madden, if you are a person who's like way into sports games and way into football, for example, you had other outlets. You had other ways of having your interests represented, but you didn't have, if you were really into skating and this kind of music and this kind of urban culture, you had no other way to express yourself in gaming besides Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 the Tony Hawk series before this game came out. There was really no other games that did it this well. Maybe the best could have been like a street level beat 'em up game, like a Final Fight kind of thing.
But I just looked it up. We're 5 years past the founding of the X Games at this point. X Games were invented in 1995. So how marginal is this culture by now?
I mean, it wasn't. Like, this was the cool... This was like... how many different punk rock music videos take place with like skateboarders skateboarding around them? And like Sum 41 and Green Day and bands like that were wildly popular at this time.
True, but I guess what I'm trying to say is this was a culture that maybe had a lot of spotlight on them, but they were
games.
they were a minority, and people tried to emulate them because they were like interesting and sort of academically studied in that time. Like, oh no, what's up with skater culture today? But there was no game outlet. There was no way that you could, I don't know, this may be reaching too far, but step into the life of a skater without just going all in. Maybe the Tony Hawk's game series let you sort of see a day in the life of a skater.
So that brings us back to the original question of sort of like, who is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater for? Is it meant to be an accurate depiction of skating for a skating audience? Or is it meant to be sort of a ramped up, you know, it's not sensationalized, let's say, version of skating for an audience that doesn't really give a shit about real skating?
I mean, can it be both?
I don't think so.
Can it be that skaters really enjoyed it for one reason, but like these suburban kids who don't skateboard at all liked it for a different reason?
So,
like,
yeah,
I think players who play Madden play it to unwind and to kind of play it from coach instead of player, versus people who, all they do is play Madden, take it super duper seriously, and take it kind of as a game unto itself that is removed from football. Like Madden and actual NFL football are two different things.
Sort of the fourth down conundrum. Like if you're the sort of player who goes for it every fourth down and just throws bombs.
Exactly, because you know that Madden, like in Madden, if you play well enough, there's literally no good reason to ever punt. Whereas NFL football, that's not how that works. But I think one of the things that I don't think that they are mutually exclusive, and I think that they are definitely appealing more to a wider audience that is not as in-depth into skating, but they did a pretty good job of co-opting Tony Hawk to make this, and co-opting the soundtrack to, skating at the time. You don't end up with Rage Against the Machine on your in your opening video if you're not trying to do that. But one thing that's weird to me about the type of skater culture that they are capturing is when you read that soundtrack, it is like half underground rap, then there's some mainstream rap with Anthrax playing under it. And then you've got these like faux metal bands, and then you've got these weird punk bands. Like it's this weird hodgepodge of different kinds of quote unquote urban culture all mixed together, and yet it somehow works as a cohesive whole in a way. Like, what do Chuck D and what was it? Hanging Utter?
Yeah, Swinging Utters. Yeah.
What does Public Enemy and Swinging Utters have in common? And
the love for skating.
The cross section is skating.
Just kickflips. That's all they have in common.
If we really want to identify the game that just captured the urban culture, it had to be Mark Echo's Getting Up.
Oh, one day we'll play Mark Echo's Getting Up.
That's an actual video game.
It's
like a graffiti.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Mark Echo's Getting Up, Contents Under Pressure.
I played most of it. I didn't finish it. I played most of it.
God. I just remember that game like right now.
But that's like if we use that one, right? Like there's no comparison between Mark Echo's Getting Up and Banksy in the same way that I don't think there's much legitimate crossover between actual, like what Bob Burnquist actually does on a skateboard and what I made him do in a Spanish bull ring.
All right. So
there's no correlation there.
There's no crossover there.
Likewise, I've played lots of golf video games because I'm an avid golfer. I've been playing for over 20 years now. And I still am a golfer who liked playing golf video games. So maybe I was that 1 in a million person who was actually a major part of the culture and also played the video game that was pandering to the culture wannabes. So it's not that too disconnected for me. I mean, and I guess if Like, if Madden appeals to real NFL players, maybe Tony Hawk's Pro Skater appealed to real skaters.
Yeah, but I feel like if you wanted to have the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 version of golf that you would have, like, wouldn't they play it up to... Like, the soundtrack would be... What does wealth sound like?
What
What would the soundtrack be?
would the soundtrack be of?
Does it sound? What does wealth sound like? What does privilege sound like?
Right.
Because that's what golf should sound like.
It's just somebody dropping diamonds into a champagne flute for like
Yeah,
6
Hang
is it
on
just,
now.
Is it just people counting stacks? It's just Pink Floyd's Money on loop, but
Guys are talking
unironically.
shit about a really important part of my life.
No, we're
I'm talking
not.
shit about it. I'm just
We're-
saying, like,
It's
there's
Tony Hawk aesthetic.
no, like, it would be parody if you tried to do the same thing with golf that they're doing with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. And maybe, you know what, listeners, if one of you if someone out there was way into skating culture at the time or is a skater now, what do you think of this game? Because you probably have a more valid perspective, not more valid, but a more interesting perspective on this than we do. Because for me, it rings somewhat true, but also it's so exaggerated and comedic that I don't know whether to take it seriously or not. But then again, in like 2 or 3 more versions of Tony Hawk, fucking Bam Margera's in it.
Yep.
And
Thug
it's-
too.
And it's like half Jackass, half Tony Hawk.
Yep.
And that's where that game series went, and that's where it went to die.
But
So,
the point... Yeah, you go ahead, Billy. I've been saying a lot.
well, I was actually gonna do a slight topics transition. So, like Gino said that later iterations of the Tony Hawk series started getting a little bit weird or more wacky. One of the reasons that makes Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 such a good game and so well remembered and fondly remembered is because it's in many respects one of the best sequels ever made. I mean, by any metric that I can find, this game did everything that you ever want a sequel to do. So I finished my sort of academic play of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 in a couple hours, 6-8 hours. Then I said, all right, let me just download and play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, the original game, and see what happened from game 1 to game 2.
They made
And
a game.
They took an idea that was well executed, but very prototype, very, very alpha version. I mean, even though it was a complete package, it was clearly lacking in some depth.
Was
in
Bob Burnquist there?
I don't remember all the characters in Tony Hawk's 1. I spent
think
most
you-
of my time examining 2.
How
I
many
think he's got a
Spider-Men?
mainstay.
How many Spider-Men were there?
They essentially expanded on every single thing that was good and took away all the things that were bad. So we got more levels, more characters, soundtrack, more explorables, more collectibles. I'm just saying that again, not just as the grind father that I am, but the collectibles were done better. They just took every possible thing that you could do to make the original Tony Hawk Pro Skater model, and they just did it. And I think that games that want to look into sequels should honestly take an academic look at Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 and see what they did from 1 to 2 and use this as a model for making sequels because they hit it perfectly.
Yeah, and iteration back in the PlayStation 1 era was so much. You could just iterate so much between 1 and 2 without expanding your team hugely. Like the idea of a semi-annualized sequel getting that much progress between version 1 and version 2 is kind of laughable in the modern day. Like Madden from one year to the next is like
It's a
touting.
roster update.
It's a roster update, and then they're like, "Yo, the fans wear different shirts." Truck stick works kind of different.
I mean, I agree with Billy about sort of the upgrades, but I will go to my grave arguing that the high point of the Tony Hawk franchise was the first Tony Hawk Underground. And I think it was a great game. I think it's really where the franchise peaked. And then, like you said, they introduced Bam Margera and went off the rails.
Like so many things, when you introduce Bam Margera, it gets worse. Ugh. Is Bam Margera still around? Is he still punching people in the dick
I don't know. He had that show for a while.
professionally?
That's obviously not on anymore. I don't think. What was that one called? Does anyone remember?
Hang tight.
Jackass?
No, he
Jackass.
had like his own show. He actually lived relatively close to me.
Viva La Bam.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the one.
Yeah, his house is like I could drive to his house in like 45 minutes if I wanted to.
Just hit him with a
Just
chair or
something.
something. I remember you could reenact this. You got punched in the dick. It was crazy.
Everybody loved it.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Do you think his business card just said like punched in the dick professionally?
I bet it didn't have any words. I bet it was just like a picture of his face and some thumbs up.
Yep, scratched into the bottom of like a tin can.
Right.
This game's so weird. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. I actually... Oh, one thing I wanted to discuss was... I said I stalled out at Venice Beach. Then I remember this game has cheat codes.
Yes. Yes, it does.
It very
Like
much
any
does.
good early millennial game.
Yep.
I just love a game whose design team had to think about, are we going to include a big head mode? Yeah. How, like, is like, oh, we can do that? All right, green light big head mode.
How
Like
many
I
big
love
head modes?
Invisible. I thought Invisible was super cool.
I just...
And there was
I
Jetpack.
unlocked... I got to unlock all the levels. I unlocked all the characters. Spider-Man is a character.
Yes, he is.
I had never been to Skater Heaven before.
What?
Yeah, I'd never been to Skater Heaven before. But Skater Heaven's great. You're in
Then-
space.
Sort of sticking with our question of skater aesthetic, the things the game yells at you when you like go in the water or like off the course or something.
Sand in your shorts.
You suck. Just super aggressive. It's like remember
Like skater culture.
right? It reminded me of remember those like little cutscenes there used to be in the middle of Rocket Power, where they'd
Yes.
just be like gnarly dude, and then the episode would continue.
Yes.
It reminded me of that.
So what you're saying is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 is the rocket power of video games?
I'm saying I only have 2 touchstones for skater culture in my life. One's Tony
Rocket
Hawk,
Power.
the other Rocket Power. I know everything about skating from those 2 sources.
You're definitely a twister, Pete.
Dude, I'm such a Sam. Don't even act like it.
What?
Yeah, dude, I'm total Sam.
Okay. All right.
As long as I'm Reggie, I'm fine. Is that
Tell
a-
me
is
you're a
that a character?
shooby?
Yeah, I think so.
Actually, yeah, you are a shooby.
Total shooby.
All right.
See, there's a term that wasn't in Venice Beach that should have been. It should have said shooby whenever you land in the sand.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I don't know that I have anything else to say about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 except I never mastered doing special moves properly.
I
Pick it up, bro.
always did well, but I feel like I was always at that point playing a video game. That sounds kind of weird. Like, of course you're playing a video game, but I was just trying to like game the system so that I could max out as much points as possible. And so as soon as you go into the controls and say, well, I'm going to change the controls so it's easier for me to do some fucking 8-trick combo, then I feel like I'm playing too much of a game. You don't go into Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 because you want to string together a 12-move combo. You go into play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 because you want to experience that culture.
Yeah, you go into that because you want to go into a place where Hanging Udder and Anthrax and
Right.
Public Enemy are all touching.
Where Papa Roach is just bumping and you're throwing kickflips.
And they
Running
have
in
to-
a cyclone.
They have to edit the music so that there's no profane words, but one of the main structural architecture points of those songs are profane words.
Yeah, I think that the thing that made me like squint the hardest was when one of the lyrics in one of the songs was just like, and get paid like that shady kid did. And I'm like, wow, there's a rap about being jealous of Eminem. That is the most.
That is so late 90s.
Yes. That is so late 90s and so perfect for the type of skater culture they are seeming to capture. It was weird. Man, this game's weird and good.
Do you think like surfing games never took off as well because there's only one environment? Like you only have one ocean, really.
Maybe they just didn't get weird enough.
I think so. Because like you have the same like Tony Hawk is to skating what Kelly Slater was to surfing.
Maybe surfing just isn't that dynamic as a sport. And also, I think that if you made the equivalent of the hangar level, but for surfing, what does it look like?
Yeah.
I think surfing. Okay, so roll with me here for a second. I don't know that much about surfing culture, but I watched Johnny Tsunami. All right.
So we're good. We're good.
But if I am thinking about this correctly, one of the big
Johnny Tsunami was
components.
a snowboarding movie.
No, he
They
started.
surfed for like 2 minutes at the beginning.
All right, fine. Just roll with me here. I was cracking a joke.
All right. What do you got?
So, one of the major components of skate culture is being unrestricted, not stopping, always moving, able to go wherever you want. But a big part of surfing culture is being able to just kind of chill out in the waves for a while and relax.
Yeah.
Like most of the time you're surfing, in air quotes, you're just kind of sitting in the water, in the wake, and just kind of waiting for a good swell to come by.
Yeah, just waiting for the next set.
And then when it does happen, you get about 45 seconds of awesome, mobile experience. But then you kind of just have to wait out there again. But that's half the fun, just kind of chilling with your friends and talking while you're floating in the ocean. So the two games are the two activities are in many ways like diametrically opposed.
Yeah.
One of them you're having the best experience while you're just kind of sitting in the ocean talking with your friends or being by yourself. You have these short bursts of activity as opposed to the entire thing being just nonstop. And if you do stop, you're not part of the culture anymore.
True.
Yeah, I don't know much about skater culture, but I have seen Brink.
Close.
So
Very
He
close.
was a rollerblader?
He's a soul skater, bro. Have a little respect.
Okay.
Bunch of X-blades out here.
I feel like the thing with surfing is maybe you need to mini golf it up. You need to just make impossible, crazy levels that
Like
have
sharks,
no bearing.
like attack you all the time. You just have to avoid them.
Like
Well,
if you
yeah,
go to
like-
the arcade and they have that dumbass
Hydro Thunder.
like wave runner game,
Yeah.
and you're
Like,
just going through a Grand Canyon.
There's a half pipe but waves. Or something crazy, like just
Sure.
impossible things. Just
The
tides
Moses
going in
level,
wrong
where they
directions.
just
They just part it.
Yeah, that'd be way cooler, wouldn't it? Or
Well,
just
that-
like here's the tsunami level. Oh no!
maybe they could do a tsunami level where it's crashing through a city and you gotta
Right,
avoid the
absolutely.
cars and debris and you just
It's
kind of like the
worst.
avalanche level of most snowboarding games.
It's like the worst version of Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam.
That's a sweet level.
It's like the worst. Oh, well, I don't think we're gonna solve surfing's problem. They tried
Do
to
you
make some
think-
surfing games.
Do you think Crazy Taxi was like a real big insight into taxi culture?
We should do just hit all like the the subcultures throughout gaming. We
Do
should
you
hit all
think-
the extreme sports. We could do Dave Mears BMX games next.
As long as we don't do BMX Triple X.
Play the Razor Scooter game.
Does Razor Scooter have a game?
Yes.
Boss.
It was
This end-
actually better, I think, than most of the Tony Hawk series.
This ends with us playing Outlaw Golf, and no one wants that.
We could play. So Parappa the Rappa is real big insight into rhyme culture. Actually, yes.
Rhyme culture. Rhyme culture.
If you want to tell me that Chop Chop Master Onion is a big influence on young rappers nowadays, I'm happy to go down. But I doubt that's true.
We'll do Phoenix Wright. We'll all become certified attorneys.
Yeah, right. Real big into law culture.
All I know is the next extreme sports game we have to play is Amped 3.
Which one's
Not
Amped
Amped 1. Amped 3. It's a snowboarding game. I'm not going to tell you anything about it.
I don't want to know.
There's a lot of good snowboarding games out there.
Oh, yeah,
the best-
1080?
1080's good.
Yeah.
Twisted,
the
was it
best.
Twisted Edge?
Twisted Edge was good.
What was the
SSX
cartoon
Tricky.
one? SSX
SSX
Tricky.
Tricky.
Those are the
SSX
best
Tricky.
ones. Those are good.
Well, I think we're now just calling out different games
Yeah,
we
now
like.
we're just naming things.
But
I'm done. Yeah.
yeah, so we're probably gonna go with. So I guess we've got to do the Jade Empire thing for Zombie Pie.
Yeah.
However, I'm not going to be able to play that for the near future. So if anyone has a mobile game that they are dying to have us play,
Yeah. I just started playing Plants vs. Zombies, but I don't know how much that's going to get us.
nah, we can always just go with Jade Empire as the next one.
So,
If you can't participate, I'll just take over. Don't worry, man. I got you.
Okay. Well, thank you, listeners. Remember, you can get in touch with us at deeplistenspod or deeplistens.libsyn.com or deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you once again, Pete.
thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I actually feel like this one got a lot deeper than I was expecting a Tony Hawk podcast to get. I think it went well.
Lights out, turn off the radio. Thank
Let's
you,
see.
Billy.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. I got a lot more than I expected out of Tony Hawk. This game definitely lived up to its rating and reputation, though in ways that I did not expect.
Do you think it would be a copyright issue if we just spliced in 7 to 10 minutes of Papa Roach right here?
7 to 10 minutes? Perhaps.
I mean, I think if they're 10 seconds of different songs, it's just a super cut.
We just need the beginning of Last Resort. That's all we need.
Could we get just whatever, like the Final Fantasy FMV music video people, whatever that community is doing right now? I think it's still just putting Evanescence songs behind scenes of Squall and Renoa making out.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're up to. But whatever that is, we just need that to be the end of this.
But
There's
for
got to be
Tony
a
Hawk,
Papa Roach. Yes,
Yeah.
for Papa Roach. I just want incongruous Papa Roach.
I mean, how much if we had to buy the rights could it cost really for Papa Roach?
They will come for you.
as
Are they
the
still
editor,
touring?
I'm not fucking with that.
Pete,
Yo.
can you do me a favor? Can you see if Papa Roach is still touring?
Yeah, sure. Let me take a look.
I'm not.
And then
I'm not
and then
fucking
the
with that
swinging
edit job.
udder or whatever.
No,
No, Billy, you don't have to edit 10 minutes of Papa Roach into the.
I'm
end of this.
not
I won't put
going
that-
to.
I won't put that evil on you.
Don't put that
Ooh.
evil on me.
Well, paparoach.com. Let's see who they have to say.
What?
Yeah, Crooked Teeth 2017. They're still putting out music.
Oh no.
Yeah, they were just in Buenos Aires.
Gino, you
course
gotta
they
end the
are.
podcast, man. You gotta do it.
Okay, we'll see you next
Do it.
time. Just cut my life into pieces.
This is my last resort.
Or see you guys later. Till next time. Peace.